Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to some of you and peace out to the rest of you. You already know who it is and who it ain't. It ain't your boy, in addition, man, the blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media, signing black in. So get your flashlights again. And hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. This one is addressed to D that was on BGS Ibmore's panel entitled Shatterpoint Number 6, Black Women's Poor Mating Choices, Pookie and Ray Ray. By extension, this also is for others in a position similar to his, in which coming from a functional background, be it ADOS or not, they have not been explained and they have not been schooled in the dysfunction of the daggle. Now, from listening, I gathered that D was of Nigerian origin. You said so yourself. And I'll be the first to let you know right off the bat, I have talked trash about Lagos area Igbos, as they are known to talk about us and everyone else. So you may not be Lagos area, your parents may not be, you may or may not be Igbo, and I'm not going to ask which one because it doesn't matter in this case. However, I'm recording this for you free of hatred or rancor and completely unaware of the geographical or tribal affiliations of your parents within Nigeria. So if someone comes to you and says, wait, Black man already talked trash about Igbos from the Lagos metro area, so don't listen to him, then you're free to say in return, how about you fuck the shuck up? He ironed that out first thing in the beginning. I'll hear the rest of it out and then I'll make my own decisions. Even if your parents are actually Lagos metro area Igbos, it won't even matter in this recording of mine. Because I'm not going to blame you for what someone else did. What I'm trying to do in this case is help a young man and other young men, because I said that this is what my platform is about. And so I'm trying to keep my promise. This is an attempt to help you and other young men of a similar scenario that don't know certain information that's been kept from you through no fault of yours, and for the other men through no fault of theirs, but that could be harmful to you because you don't know. So I'm going to start off by saying both of our people are broken, and others, ADOS or non-ADOS that are listening, can also take this statement as true. Both of our people are broken. A Black Brazilian hearing this will know this. This is true. Our people are broken across ethnicities, and both of our environments are known for dysfunction and corruption. So I'm not going to play this game of who's better, especially since we're related anyway, and both of us have suffered from the same enemy, be they enslaver, colonizer, or both. We come from ethnicities within the same race that are plagued by scandalous, not only cheating politicians, but also scandalous cheating broads from within, and a minority of dudes from whom they're willing to compete and whom they'll even share in spite of how much they want such men to themselves. Now, what BGS Ibmore and Officer Charles Faulkner told you is real. What Judge Dre told you is real. And what I'm going to tell you is real. I saw it with my own eyes, heard it with my own ears, and like Judge Dre, I lived it. And I was one of the lucky ones because the mothers of all of my children, the two mothers of my kids, have actually been fairly reasonable with me as co-parents go. I've been fortunate, and yet I can tell you it's bad. See, let me explain to you this. ADOS women, just like Lagos metro area Nigerian women, and I'm saying that without regards to tribe, Lagos metro area Nigerian women to a certain extent are like ADOS women. Surveys have shown them to be the most promiscuous on the continent because of their own confessions, their own self-reporting. ADOS women brag about their promiscuity to a certain extent. Both of them will scheme and plot on dudes for just about anything other than the penis, unless, of course, he's extra tall and married already, in which case they still will get tired of plotting and scheming for the wiener. The schemes and the plans are the same, sir. Even though the Nigerian women in the United States aren't from the hood in Nigeria or from the slums in Nigeria, In the States, you'll find all classes of ADOS women, and what you will find is that the classes of ADOS women will do the same things as the worst of women from the slums and bad areas in Nigeria would do. I say the worst because I assume that in any neighborhood in Nigeria, the women are all over the spectrum, whereas what you find amongst the ADOS is that of all classes, they're not all over the spectrum when it comes to how they're going to treat men. It's a few of them that want to even so much as be fair, and they, whether simply by volume of voice or by sheer numbers, whatever the case is, they're outnumbered. In any case, I want you to understand one thing about ADOS women, since you live in the States, especially ADOS women who are anything above ugly to look at, sir. Being attractive isn't even necessary for what I'm about to tell you, sir. Not being ugly is enough for them to feel entitled and even further on into feeling obligated to carry out the trifling, evil, scandalous scheming I'm about to tell you. There's one thing that a non-ugly ADOS or even a Western white woman can do to get the highest disapproval of their peers at these parties and hair salons in each other's living rooms in which they congregate and in which they apply pressure to each other. This one thing gets the same disapproval from their peer group you would get from your family and your family's friends, the whole community, if you were to become the most negatively stereotypical Akata in some bad 80s movie. If you got hooked on heroin and had children out of wedlock and didn't hold a job down for them, think of the scorn you would earn rightly. Well, now you have an idea of how bad the scorn is. So let me tell you what it takes to get it for these women. To get the same scorn from her ADOS peers, a non-ugly, even plain sister only has to not give a guy like you a hard time. Oh yeah. It takes nothing else to get that same level of scorn. They can only get approval from each other by having war stories in which they paint a man as a villain and themselves as innocent, but also by telling other stories in which they put through headache and hell guys like you and me and Judge Dr. Dre and other normal men who aren't being chased by women, since most men aren't being chased by women. Hell, nowadays, even a wealthy athlete who is 7 feet tall is not exempt from this mess. And there is the reason that Brandy friend-zoned Kobe Bryant. Both famous and talented, he wasn't enough for her. She couldn't get past the peer pressure, and I know this because she chose my childhood enemy for a weekend of clothes shopping. And I say clothes shopping with air quotes, because he actually did have a new wardrobe after that weekend was over. But he was not the type to spend a woman's time and spend a weekend with a woman and not hit that, whether she's famous or not. He just wouldn't do it. He doesn't have to. Women in my hometown love him to death. They still do. She chose a non-celebrity who ran from fights regularly growing up for a weekend over a guy like Kobe Bryant for something longer lasting and more substantial. This is Kobe. Jay Cutler is not immune. Steph Curry ain't immune. Will Smith ain't immune. Their wives are under peer pressure at their advanced ages with their money. And they submit and give in to that peer pressure anyways, as if they're broke teens trying to impress older rich women that they actually are right now, the older rich women. There is no social pressure on a wicked witch of the West from other wicked witches of the West to be anything good to you or me or other normal men or anything even worth our commitment. They are only under pressure to be the opposite, and they get extra points if they can boast about getting away with being and doing that without losing commitment or resources from a man. You are a mark, sir. It is not because of something wrong with you. It's not even because of your so-called social awkwardness like the men on the panel, some men on the panel might have said. That's really not the reason that you're a mark. I mean, that can work against you if you actually were socially awkward. I'm not really sure. I'm not going to use that panel as a way to judge if you're socially awkward or not. I'm not going to go and buy into certain stereotypes about Nigerians living in Nigeria or in the United States. I'm not going to stereotype you because you're not ADOS. What I am going to say is, strictly put, that ADOS or not, you come from a functional background, and this is something that I know without stereotyping that the Wicked Witch of the West is going to use against you. End of story. That's all. It's not your fault. You didn't have to do anything wrong, sir. And I'm not telling you to go and jump on that mayonnaise mafiosa woman either. No, she'll get you as well. What I am telling you, though, is that it is bad out there. And no, black men are not out there giving black women as hard of a time as black women are giving black men. It is not like that. This is not a both sides need to heal sort of thing that's been going on. No, you got a few brothers that are out here doing all the stuff these sisters complain about. Because remember, when they complain about men they actually are involved with. Black women ain't willing to get involved with most men, period. Especially most black men. So a normal, average black man does not get the opportunity to do all this stuff. The relationships don't last that long, and it's not the black men breaking up. Now, there's no study done on the breakups of non-marital relationships, but I can tell you from experience, sir. Most brothers really don't just bounce on these women just because they got bored or got tired. They bounce on them because they were pushed away. The women will act like they don't want to be in a relationship before the man leaves. But it depends on what kind of pressure she's under. If she's under pressure from her friends to never be the one that gets left, but rather to leave, she'll find any reason to break up with a man. Now that I can tell you is the deciding factor. I don't know the percentages of who ends most non-marital relationships. What I can tell you is that the deciding factor in a woman's case is what kind of peer pressure she's under, because Western women give into it. That's what you have to understand. So regardless even of your knowledge per se, or your social lack of awkwardness, regardless of these things, they are under pressure from each other to find men like you and trap you. And that's all there is to it. And that's all there will ever be to it. Until something drastic happens and forces them to change. And the only thing I can see forcing that is exactly what one African American woman said on another panel with BGS. Not on his channel, but they were on the same panel. Her name, I believe, is Danielle George. You can ask BGS what panel that was, if he can remember, but her name was Danielle George. She was in a talk and she said, she told black men straight up with a neck roll and a finger snap that I could hear without even seeing it. We're not going to change, meaning black women, ain't going to change until you black men actually start leaving. And she didn't know that there was a movement of black men who were leaving, actually two of them. One of which is a part of, the name of which is a part of BGS Ibmore's name. Ibmore, IBMOR, Introspective Black Men on Reform. Those are black men who have decided to focus on non-Western black women. Yeah. The other one is SYSBM. I'm sure you've heard of that too. Save Yourself, Black Man. Now, those are the ones who say we don't give a guck if she's even black or not. But she ain't going to be African American. And if she ain't black at all, so be it. That's them. Kirigakuri Jones is SYSBM. I might be considered a little bit of both, I guess. I'm happily married to an East African lady. I'm spoiled. I'm over the moon. I'm through the roof. I can actually be romantic with her and it doesn't send some message to her of weakness, and so I don't have to turn around and act like a gorilla later on. I could tell you now, dealing with the Western sister, that's anything nice, they take automatically to be a sign of weakness because of my phenotype. They overanalyze everything I've done, and they've done it to other men too. And they do it to a lot of black men for no reason other than that they're normal. And each one of these unremarkable sisters believes that they are entitled to an exceptional black man. And you see it, the more the better their own lives get, the more they look down on any black man of any rank. Michelle Obama looks down on Barack to a certain extent. Yeah, she said it on stage. So that's what you up against, D. It ain't your fault, but you got to listen to those men about the games that these broads out there playing. It is not a situation in which they're innocent, bro. That's not it. Your close friends that are women ain't innocent of this. And they may not know what games they're going to play, but they're going to play them. They themselves may think that they're innocent. But when they come across an opportunity to play these games, a lot of them are going to do it. And it ain't going to be all of them. But right now, they don't know which ones they are. So you certainly won't be able to tell. You may have one friend, maybe, a good friend, honest, righteous, and everything else, and is not thinking of playing any of these games, and may really not plan it. Then turns around, ties a knot, gets married, times get hard, and decides, you know what? I don't feel like working for the extra money that we don't have anymore that we used to have. I'm just gonna prevail upon him until he somehow comes up with it and alphas his way through this. She may do that. Think it's okay and drive that man insane. Then again, some of them do know, Mr. D. They know exactly what they're going to do. They're just not doing it to you because you're a friend of theirs. You're not romantically involved, but they know exactly what it is they're going to do. And they may look at you and say, well, I don't plan on doing it to a guy like D, but I'm going to do it to somebody. But they're not going to tell you about that because they know if they were to tell you, you would probably tell more men, okay, this is the kind of stuff that some of them are thinking about, and then the game would be over. And this is going to really bake your noodle, D. It's not just some of these friends that are planning these things that know they're planning them consciously, not subconsciously, and they're hiding it from you. That's not the only one, D. They ain't the only ones. This will really get you goat when I tell you this, but some of them are related to you. Now, they may not live in the States with you because your family is obviously in 2 different countries, at least 2, maybe even 3, or 4. But the point I'm making is that even let's say if you have a lot of relatives, both genders, of course, even living in the United States, there are going to be a lot of relatives of yours, in that case, XX, that will not, and they know these games and they will not tell you what they are because they would rather see a woman to whom they are not blood related at all have the ability and the option to do these things because of men not knowing than to see you be aware of it, though you're related to them, and risk exposing this to other men so that no women will be able to do these things. I've come to understand, sir, and I'm a conservative practicing Muslim. I wouldn't say that I'm a very good one, but I am a serious Muslim, and that's my circle as well. And I can tell you, I've learned a harsh lesson. I've learned that a lot of serious practicing conservative Muslim women, I've learned that many of them do not want men to know the games that ladies play because they still want to have these games as a back pocket option in the event that things get really bad. And now things are getting really bad financially and economically. We know this. I mean, hell, 1 in 3 men told a guy named Alexander Grace in Australia who does interviews on stuff like this. 1 in 3 men said to him that if they woke up as women tomorrow, they would do OnlyFans. Stop and think about that they would do OnlyFans. Can you imagine that? If we men had played our cards right from the beginning of time and not underestimated this stuff, it may be very different today. It may be that men and women will be doing OnlyFans. I mean, at the very least, it would probably be as obvious as it is true that men and women are equally attracted to each other. It may have been that the way that you see the elder, wrinkled, single moms on the market act towards men with some kind of appreciation, that it may, the way we see that now in reality today, may have been the way that even young, sought-after women would have appreciated men in times like today if we men had played things differently from the beginning of time, but we didn't. It's not your fault and it's not mine. We were born into the results of that, but part of the results are you're the mark. You're the guy, you're the one that has to figure, first off, as a guy, you're the one that has to understand their gender to get anything out of them. They don't have to understand you because they already do. That's the first thing, that you start off like that as any man, no matter what kind of man you start off like that with that disadvantage. But then add to that, you are one of the normal men and not one of the rare, lucky, almost non-existent few who somehow understand women or don't have to. Again, it's not your fault, but you still have to understand the danger. So BGS, I would ask that you have another panel, and D, I would ask that you go on it, and this time listen to them and let them school you. Let them do it, because one of them said something about how if you're not prepared for it and they run these games on you, you might flip out and the cops will be knocking at your door one day asking you, have you seen this missing woman? And that could very well be true, sir. So I want you to listen when they come back with this, so that you don't wind up angry enough one day to do something like this to someone, not because a scandalous broad like that deserves any better, but just so that you don't have to worry about your life being messed up because you don't deserve that. If you were the kind of guy that deserved that, well, goodness gracious, man, good night. You wouldn't need me to tell you that they wouldn't be plotting on you, because it is very true what another man said. These broads that will do these things to you, treat you as a mark and use you, will turn around, and as long as they have you sending them money, they will turn around and use some of that to take care of another man. The kind of man that not only do you see as lower than yourself, but who actually is lower than you because they made the decisions to be lower than you. And those will be the ones that these broads will give money, as long as that money comes from something other than her having to work for it. So if she's got you sending her checks as mandated by a court system, then hey, look, she'll take that, but she didn't work for it. She'll take that. And even though it's supposed to go to the kid, she'll give it at least something of that to some other dude because he's blowing her back out. Believe that, bro. Now, I've been fortunate I haven't had to deal with that, but I know dudes who have. As a matter of fact, and here's another thing too. Understand, you get one of the mayonnaise mafioso women, don't think it's going to be any better. Nicole Brown Simpson was doing that. She was going around with that young dude, Ron Goldman, but you know what she would not do? She would never marry him. Because if she married him, then he would have had to be the provider, instead of her being the provider. She was an older sugar mama with a pair of breasts that OJ had bought her from a plastic surgeon while they were married. Then they were divorced and he had to pay that. He had to kick out that alimony. You understand? That's what went on. So OJ had to sit up there and see her running around with this younger dude on whom she was spending his alimony checks, but she didn't have to earn that money. She didn't have to work for that money. So he had to sit up here and pay, but he could never go over there and tap that. She over there tapping a dude younger than her. She's letting him tap that. Now, OJ knew when he was growing up, he didn't get to just go up to some old heavy-chested divorcee and blow her back out whenever he wanted to. He knew that wasn't something he had ever had an opportunity to do when he was coming up. But then his ex is going to turn around and give this opportunity at his expense to other younger men. Yeah, it'll drive you nuts. I don't even care. I wish he had. I don't think he's the one that killed her, but I wish he had been. So in order for you to avoid that kind of thing, bro, you really do need to listen to them dudes. Now, if I was them, I would talk as though, instead of talking as though you just ignorant and don't know, I would talk as though you just were never told and it's not your fault, but you just were never told. And I mean, hell, you were probably just told what to stay away from. There's one other thing I will say, and then I'm gone, D, and thanks for listening this long. D, I'm going to say this, bro, and this is about vaccination versus avoidance. When it comes to certain things, like AIDS, for instance, herpes, especially AIDS, the strategy is avoidance. There aren't any vaccines for these. So the strategy is just simply avoidance. Don't get exposed to them. When it comes to some other illnesses, the best thing is the vaccine. Because like take COVID, it is somewhat airborne. You don't have to sleep with someone who has it to get it. So the best thing would probably be a vaccine. Now, people are debating about the efficacy of the current vaccines. I'm just simply saying that as a principle, an actual, true, authentic vaccine would be better because you will be exposed to it through no fault of yours. If you do not, if you have no exposure to it in its weakened form, you'll have no resistance to it in its living form. So you must expose your immune system to a weakened or dead strain of the virus so that it then will protect itself from the living strain of the virus. Well, that's exactly what was needed in your case. Because what they wanted to protect you from, which is good that they did not raise you around that, was still something that they failed to do because by association, you're linked with what they wanted to protect you from through no fault of yours. However, there's something that a Muslim scholar did for, I think it was for his son many generations ago. Or maybe it was for a student. Someone asked one of the scholars a long time ago, what is the harm in doing the things that we were forbidden from doing? And he then said, well, come with me. So he took him to a place where there were a bunch of old homeless people, and many of them were sick, and they were out of their minds. He took them there. He took his student or his son there. And he said, don't go to the homes where they're selling sex and look at them and think, well, I'm missing out. Don't go to the homes where they're brewing and selling alcohol and drinking and say, well, I'm missing out. Don't go there. Go straight here, because everybody here may not have done those things, but everybody that does these things and lives long enough and keeps doing them is going to wind up here. So the point I'm making is that the best thing for them to do would have been to say, well, look, there are things we don't want you to do, things we've raised you not to do, but let me show you what the end result is. That would have been better. Now, see, when I was young, I was about 5. My dad worked in a county jail as a physician. One day, I went to work with him. And, of course, I was a kid. I didn't fully understand, but I knew it was jail, and I knew you couldn't leave. And I knew that when some of them doors locked, you needed one of the guards to come and open up, or you were stuck. That actually happened to me. And that kind of left an impression, because when we left, my dad said, did you see the men that are locked up and they can't leave? And I said, yeah. And he told me certain things that they had done. But he didn't describe every crime in the book. What he did say is, one of the things he said was they didn't listen to their moms and their dads when they were younger, and they did bad things. And when you're grown up and you do bad things like that, that's where you wind up. And some of them beat each other up. And that's the little bit he was sensibly able to tell a little 5-year-old. And that was part of what helped me to decide to stay on the track on which my parents birthed me. So I'm simply saying that avoidance is one that is good to a certain extent, but to another extent, this vaccination is necessary. So when you get older, and if you do in fact have a good family and an enviable family situation, what you do is you take your son and daughters. Your sons and your daughters need to see from a safe distance the end result from which you're trying to protect them. Thank you for listening, D. I really do appreciate that. Appreciate your time and your patience. And BGS, if you can hear this, maybe one day have another panel for him. And give me a heads up if you can. All right. Thanks a million.